Well, hello and welcome to the Informed Traveler Podcast, a weekly travel podcast where our goal is to help you become a more informed traveler. And I'm your host, Randy Sharman. For this week's podcast, we are coming to you from Southwest Louisiana, a region bursting with a vibrant culture, fantastic cuisine, lively music, and, of course, Southern hospitality. Over the past few days, we've been hosted by our friends from Visit Lake Charles and Lafayette Travel, who have been sharing with us the best of what this incredible destination has to offer. Our stay included 2 nights in Lake Charles and 2 nights in Lafayette, uncovering the sights, the sounds, and the wonderful flavors that make this part of the world so unique. And I think unique is a word you're going to hear a lot during this podcast when describing southwestern Louisiana. And what I really encourage you to do is to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at Informed Traveler, because that's where we posted the highlights from some of our adventures here in Southwest Louisiana, from scouting for alligators to listening to some of the great live music. So have a look and get a visual of our adventure. Now, our journey kicked off in Lake Charles, known for its vibrant music scene, delicious Cajun and Creole cuisine, outdoor adventures, and its world-class casinos. In fact, for our first 2 nights in Lake Charles, we stayed at the L'Auberge Casino Resort, which has a bit of a Las Vegas flair to it. It's a large resort boasting 1,000 rooms, 70,000 square foot casino, and you can definitely hear it when you walk through the front entrance, and a beautiful 18-hole golf course just steps from the front door. It has 8 restaurants, a world-class spa, and a massive pool area that highlights a lazy river that meanders throughout. So needless to say, it is a beautiful place to stay in Lake Charles. So in our podcast this week, we'll be diving into the local culture and discovering why Southwest Louisiana is a must-visit for travelers looking for a mix of excitement, relaxation, and good old Southern charm. Our first stop on our first day in Lake Charles was for breakfast at the Village Coffee House, and that's where I met up with our first guest, Kyle Edmonston. He is the president and CEO of Visit Lake Charles, and he gave me a bit of an overview of the Lake Charles area and all it has to offer. Their website, by the way, is visitlakecharles.org, and here's that conversation for you now. So, when we were having our breakfast, you were chatting about food, and it's it's pretty hard to go hungry here, it sounds like.
You will not go hungry if you're in Louisiana, and especially Southwest Louisiana. Like I said, the culinary delights here will tempt your taste buds, but also fill you up completely.
Tell me about the area now, the Lake Charles area. This is my first time here. It is very beautiful. I understand this is a very good time of year to be here. So just tell me about the area and some of the highlights.
Well, our branding slogan is Louisiana's Playground, and we think that fits us very well. We're in the southwest corner of Louisiana, and so we have a lot of outdoor activities. We've got lakes, we've got streams, we've got saltwater fishing as well as brackish fishing and freshwater fishing. So one of the few areas in the country where you can get all three on one trip. Of course, again, a lot of outdoor activities like hiking, biking, walking, jogging, kayaking. But then on top of that, we have an incredible entertainment area. We've got 4 casino resorts that are located here that bring in a lot of entertainment value. They have golf courses, they have spas, they have all of the different amenities that you would look for in a 5-star resort. So you can come and visit and do outdoor activities, or you can do luxury activities. We can take care of either one of you, but our slogan again is come play in Louisiana's Playground.
Mm-hmm. Well, I get the vibe here is it's sort of laid back. It's like there's no real rush to do anything here. Is that sort of the lifestyle?
Very much the lifestyle, like you said. It's very laid back. Again, you don't get the same big city pressures. Mm-hmm. We're a mid-sized city, got about 200,000 people here, so you're not overrun with that. But at the same time, like I said, the people here are the friendliest that you've ever met. Like I said, what they enjoy is the hospitality side of seeking visitors. And like I said, you're as likely to be invited to someone's backyard for a crawfish boil as you are to be offered a cup of coffee.
Well, you do get that vibe as well. And, getting back to the food and that sort of thing, it is really quite unique here, right? Like, you can have a bowl of gumbo, I suppose, anywhere in the world, but you won't get the same bowl of gumbo that you're going to get here, for example.
That's correct. Like I said, the recipes that our restaurants use here are the ones that have been passed down from their families. Someone's grandmother, someone's great-grandmother toyed with it in the kitchen and perfected that recipe, and they've passed it down, and now they actually serve it in the restaurant. And so the gumbo cook-offs around here are famous and very cutthroat, because everyone thinks their gumbo is the best gumbo, but it's a flavor profile that, again, you can only get in South Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. And now, explain the difference between the influence of Creole versus Cajun.
Well, it's a slightly different. The Creole, again, maybe has a little more European flair to it, because it's the blend of cultures when they came together is a little bit different than the Cajuns. So the Cajuns are a little bit more to our east, which is again the Lafayette area all the way down to Houma, whereas the Southwest is a little more of the Creole all the way up to Natchitoches, and again brings some of the Indian influence into that, as well as some of the African American influence in that, and so that kind of gets some of that European flavor, but you get a little different flavor profiles, both still delicious, but just slightly different as you go across from west to east.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a big state, so you could cover a lot of area over a 4 or 5 day visit or a week visit, right? And really notice the difference from this area versus perhaps Lafayette, perhaps Baton Rouge, perhaps New Orleans.
Correct. Again, if you're looking for the way to get into Louisiana, again, Houston is only 2 hours from us right here in Southwest Louisiana for IAH, but New Orleans is only 3. So you can fly into New Orleans, do Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and come across to Lake Charles and catch all of them at one time, and then on your way out maybe catch Houston and get a little Texas flair as well. Mm-hmm. But yes, Louisiana is so easy to get around. Again, a very compact state from north to south is only 4 or 5 hours as well. So it's a great place to do a 3 to 5 day itinerary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you gave us a bit of a geography lesson here, but just tell us a bit more where Lake Charles is in relation to. I understand it, we're not that far from the Gulf Coast.
Yeah. If you've seen some of the storm footage that we've had from here in our past, we're only about 20 nautical miles from the Gulf, and so like I said, from the culinary side, we get a lot of fresh seafood. We have everything that's available on a daily basis. And then from the weather side, it makes it very nice, because you get that Gulf breeze that kind of keeps it warm year round, so you don't get those harsh winters. But yes, we're very close to the Gulf. Like I said, right up against the Texas line, and then only 3 hours from New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about I understand too from what I've learned so far. There's a festival almost every time of year, or you don't have to go very far for a festival here.
Well, there's more festivals than we have weekends. So we have 75 different fairs and festivals. Unfortunately, sometimes they're on the same weekend, but some of them are on Friday and some of them on Saturday. Some of them are all weekend. But yes, pretty much any time of the year that you're here, we're going to be celebrating something. And it's going to, again, revolve around our food, our music, and our culture. Those are the 3 things that really drive the festival life, but it's a lot of fun. Some of them bigger than others, but all of them are a great time to be had.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, you mentioned the music, so that's part of it too. Along with the food, the music, and it just seems to be one great atmosphere.
It's one event after another, and yes, Zydeco music was found in South Louisiana, and so it's again just like the food. We kind of have our own style, and like I said, once you've heard it, it's very distinctive. You understand it, and like I said, it's very enjoyable, and it fits also within that family cultural sharing type of atmosphere, that vibe that we have here.
Kyle Edmondson is the president, CEO of Visit Lake Charles. Visit lakecharles.org is the website where you can find all the info. Louisiana's playground, as I like to say. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Next up is a chat we had with one of our gracious hosts here in Southwest Louisiana to share with us a general idea of the differences in the areas that make up Southwest Louisiana, and that is Jennifer Berthelot, Director of Communications for Explore Louisiana. Their website is explorelouisiana.com, so here's that conversation for you now. We are in Lake Charles, Louisiana. You are our host, and so far we had a great time. Thanks for having us.
You are so welcome. Thanks for coming.
So, because we're in Lake Charles, I thought, like, if you want to explore the whole state, you could divide it up into sort of 4 areas, if I'm correct. So you got Lake Charles area that we're kind of in. You got Lafayette, you got Baton Rouge, and you got New Orleans, which I think most people, when they think of Louisiana, they think of New Orleans and that kind of thing. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's how I break up South Louisiana. So everything along that Interstate 10 corridor, which is one of our really popular routes.
Yeah. So I think, if you're going to explore the whole state, that's probably the easiest way.
I would say it's definitely the easiest.
Yeah.
There's all of North and Central Louisiana. Those are still very, very drivable. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I-10 is one of our most popular stretches of road.
Mm-hmm. So give us a geography lesson here, because you're in the vicinity of a lot of major airports, Houston, Dallas, New Orleans, and there's probably a few I can't even think of. So once you got that as a hub that people can arrive in. They can rent a car, they can fly into Lake Charles, they can fly into Lafayette and Baton Rouge, wherever, right? So it's really easy to get here.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of direct flights into New Orleans. Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Lake Charles are smaller regional airports, which means they're super easy to get in and out of. And then they have good connections too. Lake Charles connects, not surprisingly, through Texas a lot. Lafayette does as well, and they also have Delta connections. So it's super, super easy to get in and out. And like I say, our regional airports are smaller. The wait times are like nothing. You are on the plane.
So let's talk about Lake Charles area. We've been here for a couple of days, toured around. The impression I get is that it's very unique, and I'm going to say even the whole state of Louisiana is very unique. There's things that you can find here that you won't find anywhere else, arguably in North America.
Absolutely. I mean, the Cajun and Creole cultures in Louisiana are not really found anywhere else in the U.S. And then, the unique thing I think really about Louisiana, or one of the unique things about Louisiana, is that we have a lot of these contrasts of like a bigger city or a bigger town where there's lots of live music and there's lots of activity, and it's like steps away from really beautiful outdoors. Just while we're here, we're staying at this fabulous casino. We've been out in the downtown area, but yesterday we were out in like the wilderness, and we went maybe a 10-minute drive to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that contrast where you don't have to go to someplace that's truly in the middle of nowhere to go see those things and experience that wildlife.
And even if you wanted to find a beach, that's maybe 20 minutes away, and you're in the Gulf.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Lake Charles is really special because it does have those beachy areas like that, Not traditional white puffy sand beaches, but beautiful beaches, I think you would agree. So that is something really, really special to this area.
So, and then when you say culture, immediately, and I'm going to speak for myself only, there's food and there's music, and then there's just the way of people. There's uniqueness. Again, I'm going to go back to that word about the way people speak, and that just goes back to the history. It's a very colorful history.
Yeah, I mean, Cajun is such a hard thing. People want to know what Cajun is and how to define it, And Cajun in its basest form is the descendants of the Acadians that came from Nova Scotia, but it's evolved into so much more than that. Historically, not that many people came, but there are so many people that identify as Cajun, and it's because almost of that community shared history and tradition. There are things that that we do here that nobody does anywhere else that are just traditional to that Cajun country culture. And so it's really just something that defines how our lifestyle is. Even the food and the music is part of that lifestyle. And yeah, accents, you're going to hear some more. I mean, you've heard some already, but you're going to hear some more as we move into Lafayette, and ways that people speak, slang that gets used. And it's really, really, really special.
Well, let's move into Lafayette, because I'm again gathering the fact that what you find here will be totally different than what you find in Lafayette.
Absolutely. So we've gone out. So we were out in the wilderness, for example, yesterday. We were checking out some of those prairies and marshlands and seeing a lot of that ecosystem. What we have planned for Lafayette is actually to be out on the Atchafalaya Basin. So that is the largest freshwater swamp in the U.S. So it's entirely different than what we saw here. You're gonna be in like moving through moss-draped cypress trees with the knees sticking up. You're gonna see different types of wildlife. Swamp tours in the Atchafalaya. We've seen these beautiful flocks of roseate spoonbills. I mean, it's just very different. It's beautiful. It's still equally beautiful, but it's very different.
And yet not that far away. A drive is maybe hour and a half, something?
Yeah, correct. So that's one of the reasons that stretch of I-10 is so popular as a travel destination for people doing road trips, is that, Lafayette's only about an hour from Lake Charles, Baton Rouge is only about an hour from Lafayette, and New Orleans is only about an hour from Baton Rouge. So you don't commit to a lot of dashboard time or a lot of just sitting in the car to get from one destination to another, where you're going to get a very different experience.
Well, and I suppose theoretically you could be in New Orleans and see all the different regions in one day. Not that you'd want to, but you could, or vice versa, Lake Charles, and you could do that. But you'd be missing out on so much. So you'd want to spend a couple of days in Lake Charles, a couple of days in Lafayette, a couple of days in Baton Rouge, and a few days in New Orleans.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could go through all in one day. I've had family in Texas, so I've made the drive all the way through, not making too many stops or anything like that. But you cheat yourself out of so much. So you're going to want to stop in each one and see what's different and what's unique about that place, because, like I said, they're all super different from one another. You think that only that 1 hour wouldn't make a big difference, but they'll accents change. The accents you're going to hear in Lafayette don't show up that much in Baton Rouge. It's wildly different.
So now what's different between Lafayette and Baton Rouge?
So Lafayette's Cajun country, and It's got a lot of that culture to it. And so that's where a lot of the accents come from and a lot of the slang. Baton Rouge is the capital city of Louisiana, and it's a major university center. So we have we're much more subtle in some of that, because we have students from all over the world that come to the university. We've got the politicians that are there that come from all over the state. So we're just a lot less deep into that Cajun
more neutral, I would say.
Yeah, a little bit more neutral Louisiana. And then Baton Rouge has that deep history of the state. You can see some, and it has political lore around it, and it's got these really unique old neighborhoods, because as the capital, it's been there forever, established as a city. So although not the oldest settlement in the Louisiana Purchase, that's further north. But so it's very different in that you'll see a lot more of a mix of people from everywhere, because it's got that university, it's got the politics, it's got, much like Lake Charles, we've seen a lot of different kind of people from all over here. It's got some oil and gas people, so we've got people coming in from around the world to operate those facilities. So it's just, it's a different mix of people.
And of course, there's New Orleans. The analogy I think in my head, and tell me if I'm wrong, is it's like a mall, and you need a big shopping or a big department store, and New Orleans is the big department store. The other ones are the.
So it's like the anchor store.
Yeah. You know what I'm getting at?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, New Orleans is the jewel of Louisiana, right? That's the one place that we don't have to tell people they should come to.
Yeah.
It's already on a lot of bucket lists. And so, it's 100% the anchor store in Louisiana. It's got our international airport. It's the birthplace of jazz. We have Mardi Gras all over the state, but the one that people think of is New Orleans Mardi Gras. And that is the one that is obviously the standout. It's the biggest one in the state. New Orleans is New Orleans.
Yeah, it's New Orleans. That's all you have to say, right? So who has the best gumbo? I'm going to put you on the spot. All those 4 areas.
I mean, I do. My personal gumbo. Actually, I did. I've heard the joke said that no matter what your favorite gumbo is in any restaurant, in any place in the world, but really in Louisiana, it's your second favorite gumbo in reality, because your favorite one is always your own.
I suppose. I guess I'm going to have to make my own now to figure it out. Yeah, I've got a recipe card.
And you'll refine it over time.
I've tried the gumbo here, so now I've got to try it in Lafayette when we go there and see if there's a difference.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm a little torn on my favorite gumbo, right? Because I I'm a duck and sausage kind of girl. And that's really Cajun country in Southwest Louisiana where we are now, because it's much more, it's a more rural style of gumbo. We've talked a little bit about this on some of the tours, right? The duck hunting and all of that is really prominent in this area. And so that's where you find a lot of that in your gumbo. New Orleans, a lot of seafood right there,
So now, okay, so we talked a lot about food, and obviously that's a big part of the culture. Music's a big part of the culture. Let's talk a little bit more about just logistics of, like you mentioned, the I-10. So the best way to tour Louisiana would be a self-drive thing, renting a car and just going at your own pace.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Transit between a lot of the cities, the public transit out, it doesn't really, the infrastructure's not there. So I would get a car and drive through. You can do that and like loop around, and depending on what order you want to hit everything, or like you said, we have really great connectivity through airports, so you could conceivably fly into Houston or Lake Charles and drive all the way through to New Orleans, and then fly out of New Orleans, and you've done just a one straight shot, and you've done really the entirety of South Louisiana. Well, the bulk.
Is there a best time to come? I know there's hurricane season and that kind of stuff, but as far and further to the music, is the festivals that are there's always a festival going on, from what I understand.
Oh, for sure. So I would say spring is obviously one of the best seasons to come. The temperatures are mild, but yeah, spring is beautiful. Like you're seeing the flowers in bloom. Festival season is really getting into full swing. We have over 400 festivals in the state, and they're really kind of divided between fall and spring, but I would say more than half fall in the springtime. And they're music festivals, they're food festivals, they're for all kinds of things. The Strawberry Festival is one of my favorites. That's in like April. So you're looking at a lot of really great opportunity to see some really unique festivals that represent the cultures of the communities that they serve. Because especially the ones that are about like crops or seafood or things like that, they're there to like support that industry and tell the story of their community that's built around that. The Strawberry Festival is in a town called Ponchatoula, which has a lot of strawberry farmers. And so it supports that industry, it promotes their strawberries, it creates a lot of community pride, and it's just a really good time. So you have the opportunity for a lot of those in spring. Fall, I do love fall in Louisiana. It's very nice. You do have the possibility of hurricanes, so you just got to kind of keep an eye on the Gulf as you're planning, if you're, and be ready to pivot a little bit. Obviously, everybody a lot of people want to come for Mardi Gras. My only warning for Mardi Gras is when you're looking at spring dates, look for where Mardi Gras falls, because it moves around. Because if you're here for Mardi Gras, you're probably going to experience Mardi Gras. It's going to be a lot harder to experience the rest of Louisiana culture. So Mardi Gras is worthwhile to experience 100%.
Yeah.
But you might need to do another trip to Louisiana to get some of the extra things that Mardi Gras overshadowed.
And getting back to that word uniqueness, let's talk a little bit about the wildlife, because where I come from, you can't see an alligator, but they're everywhere here.
Yes, yeah. So we saw a lot of alligators yesterday, and you'll probably see some more in the Atchafalaya. So that's definitely very unique. We have a huge population of alligators in Louisiana. And then our bird life is amazing. We saw a ton of that out there as well. We are on the Mississippi Flyway, so it is a huge birding destination. Every year during migration season, over 400 species of birds pass through the state. So that happens in the spring and in the fall as they go back and forth. So we are a heaven for bird watchers. We actually have there's actually a festival for the yellow rail, which is a really rare bird to spot. And we've had people come in from Asia to try and spot the yellow rail here in Southwest Louisiana. So the wildlife is very, very unique, and it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So far it's been a fabulous trip. I'm looking forward to going to Lafayette. Yes, I know, right? So it's very exciting. Jennifer Berthelot is the Director of Communications for Explore Louisiana. The website, explorelouisiana.com. That's what we've been doing, exploring Louisiana. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Well, from Lake Charles, we made our way over to Lafayette, the heart of Cajun country, where food, music, and history come together in a truly unforgettable way. And we packed a lot of adventures in the 2 days we were there, which included a bit of a walking tour of downtown Lafayette, a tour of the Tabasco factory, a swamp tour, as well as a few stops to immerse ourselves with the locals and enjoy some local Cajun and Zydeco music. A must-do if you're down in southwestern Louisiana. And again, I invite you to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at Informed Traveler to see the highlights of our adventures. Now, another place we spent some time at in Lafayette was the Vermilionville Living History Museum and Folklore Park. It's a place you can really get a hands-on feel for how this area was founded and how the Acadian, Native American, and Creole cultures came together to form what is now the area of southwest Louisiana. And our ever informative and entertaining tour guide was a young lady named Camille. And after our tour, I sat down with her to find out more about the museum. Their website is vermilionville.org, and here's that conversation for you.
Thank you for having me. So yes, I work here as a historic interpreter at Vermilionville Living History Museum and Folklife Park. And so I've been working here about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years this August. And I actually am also a Vermilionville Summer Camp alumni, summer camp counselor, which led to me working here. It's been my dream job since I was a little kid.
Well, you're very good at it. We just did a tour of Vermilionville. Tell me the background, how it got started, how it got opened, who's involved.
Right, okay, so the reason that Vermilionville was founded in the 1990s was in order to show people what life was like here in South Louisiana in the 18th and 19th century. And so are working together to source various historic homes from, like all over the region. And some of these were still being lived in the mid 80s. And so they were able to work together as part of the Bayou Vermilion District. You see, the museum is right along the Bayou Vermilion, the Vermilion River, and the Bayou Vermilion District is basically the stewards of this river. And so they built this beautiful, historic museum, and as part of that mission of the greater, activities of the Bayou Vermilion District.
Mm-hmm. So when you say a living historical museum, what does that mean?
So it's the closest thing you can get to a time machine. So whenever you walk into Vermilionville, you are going to encounter historic interpreters who are people who are well versed in the history and culture of the area, especially their own unique personal histories, be it, from our Native American cultures, our Acadian, French, European, greater European, as well as our African cultures. And so we are dressed in historic costume, representing between the latter half of the 18th century all the way to the 1890s. Mm-hmm. And so as you go from house to house, which is set up like a historic village would have been set up, you get to meet people who can present to you all about these different, crafts that they might be doing, different trades, or different aspects of our history and culture.
So it is like going back into time. And is it in chronological order? If you start in a certain area, there is a starting point and an ending point, but there's no chronological order. It's right. Random?
So there is no chronological order. Rather, whenever you first enter the village, you will start with our House of Cultures, where we talk about the three, the Native Americans, the Europeans, and the African, those cultural groups that came together to create Cajun and Creole culture as we know them today. And then once you have that basis, you get to go through and take a glimpse into different aspects of life, both in the domestic sphere all the way to greater, more far-reaching issues. So, for example, you walk into the second house and you learn how cotton was spun and how to make a shirt. Then at the next stop, you're talking about linguistic discrimination in public schools in Louisiana and why I'm speaking to you, with English as my first language.
Mm-hmm. And you're from around here, which really helps because as you said, you can relate to some of the artifacts, some of the stories here, to personal experiences.
Exactly. So I am from Cow Island, Louisiana, a teeny tiny little farming community down in Vermilion Parish, about an hour south of Lafayette and not far from the Gulf. I grew up on a rice and crawfish farm. I am a walking Cajun stereotype. Quite literally, my mom and my aunt, they're the first generation of my family that is, English only speaking. My grandparents, they both spoke French in the home. My grandmother spoke French and English. My grandfather really learned English once he got to school. He primarily spoke French at home. And so whenever, especially talking in our schoolhouse, I talk about how, hey, my grandparents went through these punishments, especially my grandfather, and so they didn't teach their girls how to speak it. But then now I am kind of grabbing that torch again and, along with other young Francophones, taking my place at that table for our culture, and also to show the rest of the French-speaking world, hey, Louisiana's here.
And it kind of smacks you in the face when you walk into the schoolhouse. It's written on the chalkboard 100 times, "I shall not speak French."
Exactly. It's actually kind of funny. So whenever I graduated from undergrad, my degree is from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and I majored in French with a minor in anthropology and Cajun and Creole studies. So I had my cap and gown, my French Honor Society cord, my French Honor Society pin, and I took a photo right in front of that chalkboard.
So what's the best way to enjoy this? Can you do it on your own and learn as much, or is it better to have, I think it's better to have a guide with you to explain everything. So are there formal tours? How does that work?
So the way you can book a tour in advance through various mediums, whether by contacting us, and then we can take you through the village, giving some extra info along the way. But if you do pop in for a self-guided tour, you will still have a very rich experience, especially because sometimes that gives you an opportunity to go more in depth in conversation with the historic interpreters. We don't mind, if you really have questions, we want you to keep them coming.
And so the buildings themselves, they're recreations, or they're originals, or a combination of both?
Yes, they are a combination of the two. So the historic homes, the actual houses, all except for one, are actual historic homes that people lived in the 18th or 19th century and or 19th century. Now, we do have one house that is a reconstruction, as well as other buildings, such as our schoolhouse or our forge or our chapel.
But the artifacts, they're not just empty buildings. There's like thousands of artifacts. Where do they come from?
Various sources, be it, being found at various, through various donations, for example. Our oldest artifact in the village, our loom, I believe, is a donation. And then, don't quote me on this one. This is definitely for our curator question, but from what I understand, some of these were also sourced at like local antique shops and things like that whenever the museum was first being opened.
So now I might put you on the spot here. What's your favorite display, artifact area?
Schoolhouse in general. I come from a family of teachers. Both my parents taught, my grandmother, my aunt is in pupil appraisal, my grandmother's sister, all of them. Everyone's a teacher. And so just being in that environment already is comforting and very natural for me. And then also, I am extremely passionate about our language, our Louisiana French, our Louisiana Creole, and the preservation and revitalization of these languages. So whenever I get in there, I love every aspect of my job, but in there I really come alive.
You can tell.
Thank you.
I can tell, and if you go on a tour with Camille, you definitely can tell. So Vermilionville, living historic museum. Come learn about the Acadian, Native American, and Creole cultures, and ask for Camille because she's a great tour guide. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci à toi.
And that wraps up our 4-day adventure in Southwest Louisiana. Once again, I invite you to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages to see all the images and video highlights from our time here. We want to thank our gracious hosts from Visit Lake Charles, Lafayette Travel, and Explore Louisiana. And of course, a big thanks for all the people we met in Southwest Louisiana. So thanks for listening, travel safe, and be an informed traveler.